Welcome, foolish readers, to a spooky edition of Shit We've Read, brought to you by the Creeps at Bilo Network.
Hello, foolish mortals, and welcome to the Halloween episode of Shit We've Read, your favorite book podcast hosted by a bunch of spooky nerds. This week's episode, we are talking about She Is a Haunting by Trang Thang Tran. I'm here with my co-hosts, Laura and Rico. Hi, Laura.
Hello. Excited for this spooky episode.
Very spooky, very scary. Rico, how are you feeling? Are you in the spooky mood? It's your time. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. I will talk in a Dracula accent all episode, even though this isn't the vampire book.
No. Oh, no.
This will not get old very quickly.
Wow. Yeah, listeners can't see that you have your background set up for us. You got your little decorations around you.
I have a display case over here with my Halloween decorations. So I moved some of them over for the camera.
I'm sorry. He said kind of, and he has a headstone, a black candelabra with black candles.
Yeah.
A skull.
Yeah.
A spooky clock with a skeleton hand, and maybe like potion ingredients.
It's a ghost jar.
Yeah, what's a jar?
But he's only kind of decorated.
It holds one of the spirits from the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland.
Oh, fancy.
This one specifically is a librarian, hence the book charm on there. And it's not turned on,
sense.
but if you push the top, it'll make some noise, and this will light up in the back. You can't see it. But
Nice.
There's a ghost hidden in here. This is all great for a podcast where no one can see anything.
I mean,
That's
this could
okay.
be our
We'll put a picture.
advertising clip.
Yeah, we'll just put a picture of something on
Yeah, for
socials
sure.
or whatever.
Amazing. Yeah, do a behind the scenes reel for us, Rico.
Yeah, okay, we'll do. You got it.
We need some spooky content. Amazing.
You got it, yeah.
Okay, well, so it's the spooky season. So what else are we reading to get in the mood, to get in the festive spirit of Halloween?
So I actually am reading stuff for the spooky season. I am making my way through a bunch of horror comics, and I just read 6 volumes in total of the Archie Comics imprint, Archie Horror, specifically Jughead the Hunger and Vampironica, and then they came together and did a crossover series, and then there's another Vampironica series that came out of that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Archie Comics and their horror imprint, it's the same imprint that gave us The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which was adapted into a Netflix show. And each title is its standalone horror thing. If you watch the show, you know what The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is about. Jughead the Hunger is about Jughead being a werewolf. Vampironica is about Veronica being a vampire. And then the crossover was kind of like a multiverse crossing over story. The world of vampires, the world of werewolves. You know, they're fun. They're cute. I've actually really started getting into Archie comics the last few years, surprisingly. It was never a thing I grew up with. But they rebooted the books a number of years ago. And they're fun. And they're easy to read. And they're spooky. They're goofy. So yeah, right up my alley.
Yeah, I heard that the Jughead and Vampironica comics were pretty good. I know those were pretty good sellers at our comic shop. I never got around to reading them though. So do you think it'd be something I would like?
I think so, yeah. So I think the first series that they released was called Afterlife with Archie or something like that. And it was kind of an anthology series maybe of just all of the characters. And I read that a number of years ago, and that was fun. It's just kind of a good introduction to all the characters, and you get a little sampling of different horror tropes and monsters. I haven't read The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, so I don't know how good the book is itself, but I was a fan of the show.
I've seen the artwork, and the artwork's really cool for the comic.
Yeah,
I don't think I've read it all the way through, but the artwork's really awesome.
Yeah, no, they're fun. They're short. They're easy to read. I mean, I think I read 6 volumes, and you can easily read 6 volumes in a night. They're short. They're easy to get through. They're good. Just kind of primer for more scary stuff if you want later in the month. But yeah, they're fun. I think
Okay.
they're for everybody.
Nice.
Cool. Laura, what have you been reading for the spooky season?
I did not really go with the spooky theme. I considered it, but also, as probably most of our listeners will know by now, I don't read very fast. So I picked a book that I really wanted to read. So I'm reading Chasm by Stacey McEwen. I think I mentioned it in the last episode as what I was going to read next, and I actually did it. I'm almost done with it. It is the second book in the Glacian trilogy. Book one was really interesting. It was like about a small town of people that are basically trapped and living on this icy ledge on this mountain. They can't get out. They just have to live their lives there. And every so often, these flying humanoid beasts show up and they pick some of the humans and they take them over the chasm, and you never see them again. And so when the main character Dawson is chosen, we get to follow her journey of her figuring out how to escape. So in book two, still following Dawson, but she is now working with a band of outcasts to try and find a way to save the people from the ledge. So it's been very interesting. There's a little bit of kind of romance in book two, definitely in book one. But I will say Stacey is very good at kind of like torturing the readers sometimes. And there's been times when I was just like, why did you do this? Why did you write this? So, but I'm really enjoying it. I like the characters. There are all different types of characters in it. Serious, some are really funny. There's good queer representation in it. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Also another big thank you to, I think it was Angry Robot. It also provided advanced reader copy for us too. So I definitely recommend it to anybody who is interested in reading these.
Excellent.
How about you, Bella?
Those sound really cool, actually. I am reading The Future King by Robin Schneider. It's a new book by this author, but it's book two of this series. I think it's called the Other Merlin series. I don't actually know what the series like title is, but the first book is called The Other Merlin. I think I've talked about it before on the podcast. I read it earlier this summer. I really like it. It's queer fantasy. It's an Arthurian fantasy. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
So Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur. But it's definitely done in like a more modern style. Like they speak, they have sass. They're quirky and funny. I wouldn't say it's queer normative at all, but the queerness isn't really balked at. Like it's not really part of the main character's conflict. It is part of one of the other characters, the side characters conflict. But all in all, especially the second book is like way more gay and way more like, yeah, so what? You're gay. It's great. It's a fun book. It's just a fun time. I realized that the second book had come out, so I just wanted to read it. It's not spooky either, Laura. So I get you. Y'all can't be Rico who plans his book reading based on the month.
Here are the books I'm reading for the next 5 years.
Y'all give me shit for scheduling, and then here comes October, and I'm the only one that understands the assignment.
Oh, excuse me. Well, then I have things on my list, sir. I read quickly. Okay. We've had other books to read, like this one. So,
hey,
okay.
The book that we're talking about tonight was my spooky book for the season.
That's true.
Exactly. This book. So let's get a little bit more into it. This book is very spooky. Again, we're reading She is a Haunting by Trang Thang Tran. They, she pronouns. This is a young adult horror. I would even say like kind of has gothic horror vibes. It's very slow burn. It's all predominantly in the setting of an old colonial home. Our setting is just in Vietnam rather than here in the States. Rico, I'm going to make you as our resident horror slut, our horror whore, to read the synopsis.
I will gladly take the mantle of horror.
I thought so.
Okay. The synopsis for this book is: when Jae Nguyen arrives in Vietnam for a visit with her estranged father, she has one goal: survive 5 weeks pretending to be a happy family in the French colonial house Ba is restoring. She's always lied to fit in, so if she's straight enough, Vietnamese enough, American enough, she can get out with the college money he promised. But the house has other plans. Night after night, Jade wakes up paralyzed. The walls exude a thrumming sound, while bugs leave their legs and feelers in places they don't belong. She finds curious traces of her ancestors in the gardens they once tended. And at night, Jade can't ignore the ghost of the beautiful bride who leaves her cryptic warnings: don't eat. Neither Ba nor her sweet sister Lily believe that there is anything strange happening. With help from a delinquent girl, Jade will prove this house, the home her family has always wanted, will not rest until it destroys them. Maybe this time she can keep her family together. As she roots out the house's rot, she must also face the truth of who she is and who she must become to save them all.
Excellent.
And scene.
Amazing. Great job. The notes. The notes. Yeah, so let's get into this. First of all, I feel like this book maybe didn't come with content warnings and really should. If you don't like bugs and mold and germs and this is not the book for you.
There's some disturbing.
There's some disturbing imagery.
Yeah, imagery. Yeah.
It's a great book, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I guessed from the cover that this would involve.
Yeah, there's some body horror kind of things going on, and
yeah,
body horror. Yeah.
I could guess from the cover, but I think people really should know, even though it's YA, it does get into it. So I will try to. That's also, I guess, a content warning for our podcast because I'm sure we are about to talk a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you guys think? Laura, since Rico just read the synopsis, what were your first impressions of this book?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. There were a lot of different themes that were being touched on. And I think some of them were a little bit deeper than I expected. Because this is a YA. And so I thought some things were just going to be glossed over. But there were some topics in there that, I mean, honestly are I guess typical for a YA anyways, just, trying to figure yourself out. But also, obviously, we're learning a little bit about the French colonial house and that history. So that brought in some more interesting topics as well. I think I probably would have enjoyed it more if I had read it instead of listened to the audiobook, though. Again, slow reader, lost track of the month. So the only way I was able to get this book done in time to record was to listen to the audiobook. And I think the author has a great voice, but I don't think she did the greatest job overall with certain details. And so sometimes it was really hard to follow, or the way that she read things or pronounced things would take me out of the story. We can get into more detail of that later if we want to, but I think this is definitely a book that's more enjoyable to sit down and read versus listen to.
Okay.
Because I also think that, when you read, you're also giving your own kind of tone to certain things and putting emphasis on certain details and things in your mind that, for me, didn't always match with the audiobook. So
I'm with you on that. I'll jump in with my impression, and then Rico, feel free to jump in. But I agree that I overall really like the book. I also read the audiobook a little bit, or listened to the audiobook a little bit. It wasn't my favorite. It was kind of hard to keep track of what was happening because the way that this book is written, you have an unreliable narrator because there's some weird stuff some possession going on with the ghosts in the house. So you're not always sure like where you are in the story. Like, are you in a memory or are you in the present? Depending on how the author was speaking and then how the
Mm-hmm.
scene transition. It's kind of hard. Like, and this is like specific parts of the book. It isn't the whole book. So I think overall, like the audiobook was fine, but I did enjoy reading it better. You could more easily follow where you were in the story, both like time and place and like which character and like each chapter or each there's like different sections to the book based on a body part. So it's like the liver, the heart, the larynx. And so like those parts are like weird transitions in the audiobook versus in the book. Like you can
Yeah.
kind of sit with it a little bit differently. So I'm with you. Anytime there's that sort of like thematic breakup of a book, I prefer a physical book. It's also just like kind of a slow burn, like mystery. I like reading those more than I like listening to them. Um, I don't know. I think, like you said, it just you can put more into it and reread things for clues that you can't really do with an audiobook. So I'm with you on that. Rico, what are your thoughts?
I'm with you both. I think you both said exactly what my thoughts were. Laura, similar to your thoughts, this book had a lot more to it than I anticipated. Um, I think unfairly, I'll admit, I tend to go into YA books not expecting a whole lot. And I think this book did have a lot. I mean, it definitely had the gothic kind of horror vibes. It had familial relationships, ethnic identities, your queer identities, and trying to figure out who you are and where you belong in the world. Colonialism kind of plays a role, and so there's a lot more to this book than I anticipated. I also listened to the audiobook, and I had some issues with the audiobook, mostly pronunciation. In particular, the one that always stood out to me was the way they pronounce a certain flower, which is not the same as the way I pronounce
Oh,
it.
hydrangeas.
Yes. And I've always heard hydrangea, which,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's not the correct way, or maybe that's the American way. I don't know, but they pronounce it slightly different. So every single time they said the flower, which is very often in this book, it just stood out and it kind of took me out of the experience, which is a bummer. I think this book is trying to be gothic horror. I don't know if it was entirely successful for myself, but gothic horror for the most part, I think I enjoy more when I actually physically read it. Before we recorded, Bella, you made a kind of a comment about how you wish it was like storming outside to record this episode. And like, that's exactly the kind of vibes I want when reading a gothic story is like, I want it to be dark. I want there to be like a single candlelight, flickering. And so I think reading it,
Okay. Charles Dickens. Who are you?
I think reading this kind of story would lend itself to a more rich experience.
Yeah.
As opposed to listening to the audiobook. Like you said, Laura, the narrator was fine. I don't really have anything negative to say against the narrator. I just think if you have the option, maybe read the book yourself. But not everybody can do that. So enjoy it however you can.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say that like I expected this book to be spooky gothic horror, but it did surprise me in how heavy it was, but it also didn't, because knowing like the author being non-binary Vietnamese American, I was like, I think there's going to be a lot to unpack in this book, which made it hard to start when you know you're going to have a heavy book like that. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, I'm reading this like lighthearted YA like romance King Arthur book. It's kind of hard to switch to like
Yeah.
a body horror haunting situation.
Well,
Yeah.
it's compared to, not compared to, but in the description it says that it's perfect for fans of Mexican Gothic, which we've read for the podcast before.
Yeah.
So I went in knowing that there was going to be some of these topics, but again, YA, I thought it was going to not be as much. And as I guess not as disturbing some of the imagery, because I was like, it's YA. Like,
That's true.
I was okay with Mexican Gothic. This is a YA, kind of similar in terms of the house, and the French colonial house is similar to what was going on in Mexican Gothic. It just was, there was more than we thought.
I will say that Mexican Gothic is a very apt comparison.
It is.
I mean,
is.
like, Mexican Gothic was to Mexico what this is to Vietnam. Very similar kind of vibes. Different story overall, but very, very similar vibes and setups.
But the ties to colonialism,
they're there, yeah.
spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously this is different because it's a modern
Right.
perspective.
Gothic was historical.
Mexican Gothic was like historical, so it's different, but like the themes are there, right? That like this, they're considering me lesser because of the color of my skin, and like even though this is my country and I'm intelligent, people assume I'm stupid or I don't speak English, and my ancestors were treated like less than, blah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was just, I was like, that was actually really accurate. I feel like sometimes people like will compare themselves to like really well-known books, and doesn't always work out.
Yeah, no.
Like I kind of hate that now. I don't trust it all the time, which I think was another layer to this. Like, I think I know what I'm getting. And if it is like Mexican Gothic, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But also, what if it's not like Mexican Gothic? And I have to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Like, that's a really shitty comparison to have to talk about. Like, Mexican Gothic is really well known. This held up to that. I think it was really spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who really liked Mexican Gothic, I think I liked this more in different ways, and less in other ways. So on that note, I think we should move on to the spoiler impressions.
Let's do it.
So Rico, insert some spooky music here. Spooky. Set the tone. Apparently I'm really into hand gestures right now. I don't know. My hands are doing crazy things. But
again, great for a podcast.
Great for yeah.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced The Dark Universe, an ambitious project that would see all of their classic movie monsters come together like some kind of horror Avengers. Only one movie was ever made, which bombed so hard they canceled the entire franchise. But what if they hadn't?
On our podcast, Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, we imagine the connected horror universe that never was. Every week, one of us pitches the other on the next movie in the universe until we grow to Marvel proportions and beyond.
So far, we've tackled Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and many more, and we're just getting started. Follow along on your favorite podcast app and ask yourself the question, are you afraid of the dark universe?
Beware, foolish mortals. As you proceed with this episode, we are getting into spoilers. So if you would like to read this book before listening in on the rest of the discussion, pause now. Otherwise, proceed at your own risk. We're going to get into it. So, what did we like? What did we not like?
I mean, I feel like I mean, we've said a few times now this is a YA book, and it definitely felt like a YA book in terms of the characters. So sometimes I got just a little annoyed because they are, it's following a teenager. Her friend, or her, what did the synopsis call her? A delinquent girl?
Yeah, that's it.
Which feels kind of weird.
Interesting description. Yeah.
Especially because I didn't find her to be very delinquent.
No.
I mean, she was a normal teenager to me. I know she said like I'm a boarding school delinquent or something. I don't know. I was like, are you? You seem very normal.
She seemed normal to me. But yeah, like there were just things that were said or decisions that were made that were just like, this is very teenager. That just sometimes annoyed me. But I think, I still think that it was nice for me to be able to somewhat find things to relate to Jade, the main character, over. I'm not Vietnamese. I am Chinese. I'm half Chinese. So, we you briefly talked about this before recording, but this book jumps into, you know, not being enough for one or the other. She is Vietnamese American, correct? And
Mhm.
so the
Yes.
book kind of talks about how, you know, she doesn't speak well Vietnamese, like she doesn't speak it well. She can kind of speak it, she can kind of understand it, she can't read it. And so like when she's there, she's not enough. She's seen as just American. When she's in America, she's seen as Vietnamese. And then like her father is going through the struggle where his family doesn't want to see him and support him because he grew up in America, even though he's now living in Vietnam and he can speak it and he's part of that family. They see him as American, but he in America is seen as Vietnamese. And so I felt like I kind of connected with that in a way because, you know, in some situations I am white, in other situations I'm Chinese. Um I very much grew up in, I would say, a white family. So I don't know my Chinese heritage as much. And I think I've brought this up before in a
Yeah.
past episode. But it was nice to kind of to be able to relate to some of these situations that more than just Jade was dealing with in the book. And it was funny. My youngest brother, seems to have gotten all the Chinese genes out of the three of us. But even he said when he is with a group of white friends, people think he's Chinese. When he's a group of his Asian friends, people think he's white. So he's like, he doesn't even feel like he fits in, even though he is, like, he definitely looks more Chinese than we do. And we were talking about different descriptions of things, and it was really funny in the book when I think Jade said something about how was it Jade? It was either Jade or Florence saying something about how they are a banana.
It was Jade, yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. I've never like actually read that. Like that is a description that we use sometimes, is that, we are Asian on the outside, but inside we are white because we grew up in this culture. So I just thought it was interesting to see that actually written in the book.
I think that's a common
So
issue that a lot of people, whether you're mixed race or not, run into when you are raised in a culture that is not the same as your ethnic ancestry. Like
yeah,
I am Mexican American. I am full-blooded Mexican, though both my parents were from Mexico, so I'm not mixed race. But I was raised in the States, and so to all my friends and everybody here, I'm Mexican. Like I speak the language, I have tan skin, identify with the culture. But like if I were to go back home to LA or go visit people like in Mexico or something, like I feel like I'm not Mexican enough. Even though people still default to me. I went to Mexico for a friend's wedding, and I was the default spokesperson because I was the brown one. And even people there in Mexico would just immediately talk to me because you're the brown one, you speak Spanish, which luckily I did, but that's not true of all Mexican Americans. Like not everybody learned their native language. But when I did speak to these people who were speaking to me, my Spanish was not nearly as strong. There's a slang term that we use, pocho, which means like you should speak Spanish, but you kind of really don't very well. And so it's not as strong, and I get kind of anxious speaking Spanish around native speakers. I get a little embarrassed because my pronunciation isn't perfect. I forget certain words. I use a lot of Spanglish to fill in gaps, which is kind of a thing that Jade, mentioned of like, she understands Vietnamese more. She understands it better than she speaks it. And so
yeah,
I related to her, even though it's totally different ethnicity. But I think it's a common experience, especially amongst, I would say, people who are mixed race, like you, Laura, and also you, Bella. I mean, when I was reading this, I was wondering specifically how you two would feel, because I imagine like you put you against white people, you're gonna feel like the ethnic person. You put you against your ethnicity, you're gonna feel too white. And so I'm just curious, like Bella, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. Especially because I was reading this book on my way to an event today at my alma mater of UC Davis, which is also where I grew up, which is a very, very white town here in Northern California. Very affluent, very white, which I was neither of, at least not in their eyes. Like no matter what, it was like you are brown, right? Like, and I know that I'm a lighter skinned brown person, but I was brown enough, right? Where like people clock you in that town is like, you are not a white person, but like, what are you? Got that all the time, right? Like that's everyone's favorite question when you're somewhat mixed or like ethnically
Mhm.
ambiguous in some way, shape, or
I'm a
form.
person.
What
My
are
name is
you?
Anakin.
Yeah. Always find a way to bring up Star Wars. But yeah, like I was talking about it today because I was speaking to like students who identify or like have Native American heritage. And we were talking about like how fucking ridiculous the concept of like race and ethnicity is, in the sense that like they were like, I'm Native, I'm from this tribe in California, and I get, are you Filipino? Are you Mexican? Are you like, what are you? Depending on the group, right? Everyone has a different perception of like what these features are, right? Especially like if you're around really, really white people, they just kind of are like, you're brown, so you must be Mexican, because like that's what we have in California. And it's like, that's not it. Someone was like, I'm Guatemalan. I am from Guatemala, but
Is that in
constantly
Mexico?
having to tell people. Yeah, constantly having to explain to people like, no, it's different. Like, or because they're indigenous, they don't speak Spanish. They have a different language,
Yeah.
right? For those who are native to like uh, uh Southern America, South America, or Mexico. Oh my God, I'm so tired, you guys. This is trying to have deep conversations on like 10% of my brain. But it's just, that was the thing, like reading this book and talking today. I think just like as I get older, I get more and more comfortable with being okay being mixed. I think when I was younger, I really wanted to be white, make it easy, right? And then as I got older, I was like, wait a second, like I want to be proud of who I am. And I want to identify more with like my Mexican side, because like I love the food, I love the culture, I speak the language. Like that's what I'm clocked as, right? When I'm walking out in the world as like not white. But as I get older, I'm like, I'm okay being mixed. And like I speak Spanish, but I'm nervous around native speakers. My Spanish isn't 100% like it used to be, because I mean, I live in a white English speaking world, like in California, like most, especially Northern California. Like it's really hard to find people who speak Spanish, like find those spaces. But I meet so many people now, like at this event, it was like, I don't speak Spanish. I'm, you know, 100% Mexican and I don't speak Spanish. And it's so much more common. And like our language doesn't have to be tied to our identity in that way. Like we're still valid in who we are. But seeing this character Jade really struggle with like not being enough of something, like that really resonated with me on so many levels as someone who's like non-binary, bisexual, like mixed race. I'm like, like you're always constantly trying to like prove something to yourself too, and to be okay with it all the time. I mean, yeah, like it's exhausting. And like she's like having to lie to herself and everyone around her. And she's like, I can pretend for one more year. And I was like, ooh, I feel that. I felt that. Like there's a lot of like, I just need to like make these things happen and everything will be okay. And then like I can be comfortable with who I am. The rationalizing. So that was very YA, but that was still very important to read at the same time. Because I think that a lot of us who grew up before social, like TikTok, before Instagram, like that came around when I was in like high school and college. So like that kind of representation didn't really exist as freely as it does now.
Yeah.
And so these kinds of books like still mean a lot to me when I read them. I still love that kind of representation, the nuances, the gray areas of like identity and sexuality, ethnicity, whatever, right? Like that is still so important for me to read. So I was like, I really appreciate, and the banana thing, I was like, oh, the times I've heard people call each other coconuts because they're brown on the outside and white on the inside. I was like, we've all heard this shit. And yeah, I just was like, God, I fucking hate this stuff that like you still carry with you as an adult. I was like, oh, that still hurts to read for her because of what I've gotten and what I've seen my friends get. So yeah, there was a lot of feelings, a lot of identifying with the characters in this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
I think it's important to note that when it comes to like self identity, it's a ongoing process. Like it's not just a one time thing. Like Bradley, you mentioned how like there was a point where like you just wanted to identify as white because it's probably easier. It made you feel like you fit in better. But then now you're more okay with identifying as who you truly are, or, you know. And I think it's really hard for teens, for someone like Jade, to like try to figure out all her identities all at once. You know, what's my ethnic identity? What's my sexual identity? That's a lot to put on yourself.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to change your identities as you grow. The more information you have about the world and yourself, new labels can make more sense, you know? And I think that's important for people to understand. Is like, however you identify today, if it suits you today, great. But hey, next year, if there's something that works better for you, by all means, change your identity. Like, you're not stuck.
Yeah. Honestly, so true. We've had that conversation so many times. And there's so much more going on in this book than even just the mixed race identity. I mean, food is a really big theme in this book. Literally, they are being poisoned by their dad, essentially, who is being haunted by the colonialist owners of the home, and a person who assimilated by marrying into the family. It's all very complicated. So, like, it's so interesting to me because food is such a common trope in mixed race and first gen stories. In like ethnic cultures, it's just, I don't know, it's just something we read about. We love food. So it was interesting to me that food was the way that they were being manipulated.
Yeah.
It was so interesting.
I was so sad, but also not surprised when we discovered towards the end that Jade was also being manipulated when she was making her sister's food, trying to protect Lily from her father's food, and her realizing, oh no, they've been having me do this.
Okay,
and I was
wait.
like, oh.
Yeah, she was like, oh no, grasshoppers look the same as chopped onions or leeks. I can't remember.
Yeah,
lemongrass.
The crickets. As she was cutting up the crickets.
Crickets are the
And
same.
he's a vegan.
Wait a second. She's like, wait a second, I've done
insult to
this.
injury. Good Lord.
I was gonna say, as vegans, how do you feel about this character?
Yeah, it was really sad.
Sister being secretly poisoned by animal products.
Yeah, and then the night
she was having a vegan-friendly meal.
And then the night that they all just ate the food, ate the meat, and her sister the next day was just sick.
Yeah,
and she's like, "This is weird. I don't know what happened last night." Like this Lily was even like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I can't even imagine how she would have actually felt in real life." Like,
no, as someone who like I haven't had meat in years. I'm a vegetarian. Well, I'm a pescatarian, so I guess I eat fish, but it's very different from
it's different from meat.
Yeah. It's different from red meat, pork's feet, like all that pork knuckle. Like she was like for a vegan, she was off in the deep end. I was like, I can't even imagine doing that. Like just uncontrollably eating that much animal product after not eating it for so long. Beyond like she cheated for desserts is what her sister said. But like,
but that was dairy. That's dairy, really?
That's true. That's dairy. It's not even like animal product. It was like sweetened condensed milk, which like arguably is more sugar than dairy products. So if you're justifying it.
Yeah, I felt really bad.
I
felt
thought
really
about you
bad for
guys.
Lily. Like, Lily was in the middle of everything. She didn't know what the heck was going on, but Jade did, and their father did.
Mhm.
And Lily's just in the
Yeah.
middle, just like,
For
just
a
trying to.
13-year-old, she was pretty stupid. She was very naive. A little too trusting. I was like, at 13, I was fighting people for more, just as important of things. Like, I can't believe that a 13-year-old wasn't like, what could be happening? Why did I uncontrollably like scarf down all of this pork? Could it? My sister says I'm being haunted. Could I possibly be being haunted? No, I love my dad. I was like, get out of here, Lily. Stop it. Wake up. So that was ridiculous. But yeah, I thought the family stuff, the food, all of it was really tied together because her memories of her dad were about food. And so, like, that almost made her an unreliable narrator, which we then found out was actually true because she was poisoning her sister with food.
Mhm.
But like, she kept going back and forth throughout the book of like, I'm not going to eat. The ghost told me not to eat, but it looks really good, and so I'm going to eat it. And it was delicious, and I have no regrets other than maybe I shouldn't eat today because I should like detox from this, basically.
I got very big like eating disorder vibes from this whole thing of like don't
I
eat
wasn't
and like
going to
really
talk about
wanting to
that.
eat. Well, I just want to, like, I don't know if how intentional that was or just an interesting kind of coincidence, but but because I don't think Jade dealt with that. I don't remember that being mentioned at all.
I don't think so.
But when it comes to just trying to read into like this person and them growing up, I was like, oh, there's like some weird eating disorder stuff going here. Don't eat, but it looks
could
really
see
good.
that.
And I really want to eat it, and you kind of binge it, and then it's
Yeah.
not on
I
the
was wondering if
page.
either of you, yeah, I wonder if either of you clocked that. I definitely
Yeah.
clocked that.
Yeah.
No, it definitely mirrored an eating disorder, but obviously was based, it wasn't that for her.
No,
It
not
was
at all.
all around
Yeah.
like the haunting and stuff. But yeah, the
Yeah.
language was really similar.
Yeah.
Of,
But I
"Man,
felt like that
shouldn't eat
added
this."
it added to kind of like the body horror element of like
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of horror
Yeah.
stories feed into
Lack of
word choice.
self-control.
Yeah, and
That's a very good point. I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't think that was relevant, but I think you're right. It did add to the body horror of like the lack of control around your own body.
mhm.
Yeah, that was a really scary part of it, was like how Lily and her both kind of gave up their own either like morals, like with the veganism, or like dispositions around like, I'm not going to give in to my dad's cooking just because he wants to like have this relationship with me even though he abandoned us, but like, ooh, that looks really good. And then there was the element of the haunting with it. So it's a good point. Damn, Rico being the insightful one tonight.
It happens every it's
But,
it's the season.
It's
It's the
tis the
spooky season.
season.
Of course.
That's
He's
it.
using 100% of his brain right now.
I'm lighting extra candles. They're imbuing me with extra power.
There you go.
Yeah.
Any other month, I wouldn't even remember what the main character's name is, so it balances out.
Oh, there you go. What about the queerness of this book? Can we talk about like how incredibly gay her friendship with Florence was? Like,
yeah.
from the very beginning, I was like, so gay. And we knew, like, I think from the very beginning, it was like, I like girls and I can't tell anybody. So we knew that she was bisexual from the beginning. But like immediately with Florence, she was like, oh, I like her. She's cute. And I don't know. It was really cute. It was really sweet. It was very YA, but it was like,
It felt natural though, too.
yeah.
Like at first
it didn't feel forced.
she's like, I don't want to work with Florence. I don't want to have anything to do with her. But fine, I have to work with her on this website.
Mhm.
And then I think that as she started feeling like she was kind of isolated in the house, then she actually like really started to talk to Florence. And it just felt like it was a pretty natural progression, like seeing them build this friendship. You could kind of see a little bit of that attraction every so often.
The flirting was like So cute and perfect.
Yeah,
Like
I
very
think
teenager, like, are you gay? I might be gay, but I don't want to say it yet.
yeah.
Or like, if you know, you know. They're both trying to give each other signals. It's so funny. It's really cute. But then it's also like very nice to see this friendship kind of roll out naturally as they're like kind of both, again, in similar boats of Florence is from Vietnam, but did boarding school in the US. So she's kind of got like that assimilation, like identity crisis, the same as Jade, even though they're very, very different. Jade grew up in the US and is Vietnamese. So just kind of shows some of those common themes.
What I like about the queerness in this book was that it showed like the nuances of like bisexuality. I feel like other books that I've read that where a character is bisexual, it's just I like boys and girls, period. But this is, it even says later in the book is like, I like girls, I like boys, still sometimes more girls than boys, right? Like
Yeah.
I lean more
Yeah.
towards girls. And then even it also added, I like people who aren't either. So it's even like a little flavoring of like pansexual, you know, not just bisexual. But again, like I said, identities can change. Maybe Jay doesn't have that language yet, or they choose to identify like bisexual. But I just like that there was some nuance there. It added depth to the sexuality as opposed to just like
I really liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point of like sexual identity is a spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's fluid.
I mean, it
Or
is,
whatever your
yeah.
heart desires at any point. Like there's no reason to use that label. And it would be really cool if there is some kind of like follow-up story, or like if the author does something in like a similar vein of like, I'm just queer and I, like whoever. And that's it, like there's no need to label yourself either. And I'm so curious about like Jade's journey with that. Like this was very much like a snapshot in time, but I could see it going that way. I could see her being like, nah, I just like whoever. And I'm not going to label myself. Maybe that'll be her journey. Who knows?
I like that the author also wrote in that her parents accepted her
Yeah.
as such. I mean, that's not always the case, especially if you have a more traditional family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a lot of what she was struggling with in this book is her parents finding out, and she wasn't ready for them to know, and she didn't know how they were going to react. And so it was nice that in the end they both were accepting of her.
Yeah. Of all the things that this ending included, at least there was like one thing that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
True.
brutal ending to a
True.
book. So, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of gave me the Fall of House of Usher vibes. I don't know if anybody's ever read that short story from Edgar Allan Poe. It's the inspiration for the brand new show that came out on Netflix, The Fall of the House of Usher. And but that story is this haunted house that basically like, is destroyed at the end, and kind of the ghosts that haunt it go down with it, and the main character kind of walks away from it. And so,
okay, that's actually something I wanted to bring up, that I think both this book and Mexican Gothic end with the house being burnt down.
yeah.
It sounds like this Edgar Allan Poe short story also ends with a house being burnt down.
Yeah.
And I am not a horror whore. So I have a lot of questions, Rico. And I think you might answer this. Is that a thing? Is that a trope that the haunted house burns down at the end?
I think it is, because in a lot of these stories, the house is a character, and the house itself is like the antagonist, right? And so how would you destroy the antagonist? You got to defeat them, and so you have to raise the house down to the ground so that you can be free of it.
Well, I thought when Jade punched the portrait of Marion, I thought that would have killed her spirit and therefore like unhaunted the house. So, because there's always like a physical object tied to things too, which I know the house is a physical object, but sometimes it's like destroy the portrait. Like I think I watched the new Haunted Mansion, and it was like they destroyed his hat or
Yeah.
trapped him in the hat. Do you remember I'm
Yeah,
assuming you watched.
it was his hat.
So that was tied to like his physical item. So I was kind of curious if that would happen here. But what do you guys think the house represented? What do you think it was a symbol for?
Well, I mean, the real answer is colonialism. It was it was a French colonial house. It was built by French colonizers who came in and took over and not enslaved, but like put the native people from Vietnam like to work. Like the grandmother, she was one of the people that had to work, and so it represents outside forces coming in and taking over and controlling a people. And so, I mean, I think in that regard, it was one of the reasons why the house had to be destroyed, because even if you punch the portrait and the ghost is no longer there, the monument to
there.
colonization is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Which-
the pulling down of Christopher Columbus statues.
The very last, I guess it's called like the house chapter, the little 1-page entries from the house's perspective.
Yeah.
The very last page of this book, it's titled Heart.
Mm-hmm.
It says there will always be another, implying that it's not gone.
You know, I understood it as this story is done, but there will always be another. There will always be another house like this, another person like this. That was my
Another
takeaway.
colonial house.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that it's an ongoing process, right? It's not you just take down one thing and you fix colonialism. It's many monuments. There's many examples of people who came in, and because even what's her name, the Alma? No, who was the woman who was living there? Like she is kind of a bad guy. She
The living bad guy.
yeah, like right, and so she could be a Marion. Yeah, like
They even called her our living Marion.
Yeah.
something
exactly.
to that
So like
extent.
that's the thing. It's a cycle. Like she obviously exists now. She herself is not a colonizer, but she
kind of is.
well, like she benefits from it.
She is.
I mean, she is, you know, but I mean, like, the line in the Barbie movie where everything comes back to the Barbie movie, but there's a line in there where what a businessman tells Ken is like patriarchy. We're smarter about it now. It's kind of that. It's Alma is now like, I'm smarter about it. Like I'm more.
It's so true.
We're not actually coming in and building houses and forcing you to do stuff.
No.
We're coming into places that already exist. We're educated. We're going to keep it up. We're going to keep the history of it. It doesn't matter that the history is not your own.
Well, and like you said, they got smarter. So like she even complained at one point. She was like, even though it's our money holding this economy up, like they make it impossible for us to like own these homes and rebuild them into their glory days and blah, blah, blah. Like she still has that sense of entitlement, that colonialism,
exactly. For sure,
which was at the core of colonialism, right? That like the white Eurocentric worldview was the dominant and therefore superior one that needed to be enforced upon others. And so like even the way that she recounts the history of this house, where she's like, oh, it was this lovely couple who like, helped build these beautiful homes and like kept the peace, and you find out it's because they were killing locals, right, who refused to bow down to the conquerors, to the colonialists. So like my thought about the house representing colonialism was sort of like, this is what happens. It's almost like a warning or a symbol of what happens when we're not honest with ourselves. When we're not honest when we're not self-aware or self-reflective. Because Marion like said she was a scholar of European Indochina history or something like that. And if you think about it, like the only way that Jade burned down this house was when she was honest about everything. When she revealed the truth to her mom on the phone and to her friend Hallie or Haley, that's when she like got the power to burn this place down. It's kind of when she saw through things that like I was poisoning my sister, and like the only way to like get rid of this is to burn it down. So I don't know. I felt like I feel like the author was doing something deeper there, and that's where I was kind of hoping to go with it too. Was like, I wonder what the ultimate lesson was. I liked it. It made me think a lot. I haven't thought that much about a book in a long time. Well, on that note, I think we're ready to wrap this up. So this book has a rating of 3.43 out of over 5,000 ratings on Goodreads. Do you guys agree with that? What would you rate it? I know what I would rate it, but I want to hear Laura's first.
I'd probably give it a 3.5.
Okay. Rico?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think there's definitely meat in this book. There's definitely a lot in this book that makes you think and has you consider. And so for that alone, I feel like I would give it like a 3.75.
Wow. 3.75.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time with like anything less than half a star. So it's always impressive to me when you're like 3.82. And I know you have a rating system. I know you have categories and shit, and you average it and blah blah blah. But the math, that's too much math.
Like,
so
give me my
I
boy
don't know,
math alone.
your Ken math. I like it a lot. I think it is a really good book, especially for a debut. I feel like there is a lot of meat to it, especially for a YA, which makes me respect the author a lot for doing that. I think a lot of the time YA can be really fluffy. And I think there have been a couple of YA books that we've read that have been like excellent examples of like tackling these like deeper themes for youth. And I think it's important. So for that, I want to give it 4 stars. But I think there's also like, I did have trouble like really like sticking with the book sometimes.
Agreed.
Oh, so that makes me want to say like 3.5. Maybe I am a 3.75, and I don't do
quarters. I don't do quarters.
Hard. It's so hard.
Oh, Laura doesn't believe in quarters. $50 only.
That's why I think it's a 3.5. I'd probably, again, Goodreads does not do halves or any like that. Only whole stars. I'll probably round it up to 4, because it was very well written. Debut book, like we've read debut books where we were like, we enjoyed it, but also like, here are all the things that we didn't like about it, or poked holes in. And I feel like we didn't really do that at all for this book.
That's true.
Yeah. That's why I want to give it. I think I'm going to give it a 4 for that. I mean, you just kind of convinced me in my 4 of like, you're right. I've been harder on books and given them 3.5s. So I feel like for that reason, just because it was heavy doesn't make it a bad book. I just think that you have to be in that mindset. Yeah. And that's not really why I read as much anymore. The world is heavy enough as it is.
True.
I read to escape. So it was hard. This had me confronting a lot of things, a lot of different themes in my own life. So it was like, oh, this is a lot of work. And I'm not in the mental place for this. I am on a train going to a recruitment event. Like, this is not what I would like to be reading right now. But it was really good. It was really good. So I think I stick with the 4.
Okay, so 4, 3.5. I think that averages out to 3.75. Wow.
Oh my God. Yes, Ken does math.
Wow.
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll definitely be recommending this book, you guys. Like, I'm like, if you liked Mexican Gothic, this is the book for you. It's gay, it's here, it's queer, it's great. Perfect time to read this book and support non-binary queer authors. So, gotta do it. So what are we reading next? Who has Something is Killing the Children? Rico?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what
Fun
I'm
story.
reading next, I'm gonna continue on with the spooky reads and my horror comic books. I'm reading Something Is Killing the Children from Boom Studios. It is a
So good.
yeah. I know you're a fan. I'm finally getting to it. I haven't started at all yet.
Yes.
But
I have some
I'm
some of the special variant covers in my collection.
ooh nice. I think I'm gonna get the like the deluxe version that has like the first 3 collected trades. Anyhow, it's about a monster killer who hunts the monsters that abduct children of a sleepy Wisconsin town. Does that sound right to you, Laura?
That sounds I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
remember if it was Wisconsin, but that's what
yeah, that's
happens.
what Goodreads said. So if it's not Wisconsin,
Yeah.
Goodreads is lying. But yeah, no, this was a book that I heard a lot about when it was being released, when it was brand new. But because of me, my stupid,
Your stupid schedule.
yeah, my stupid schedule, I immediately saw like, ooh, that'd be perfect for October. So I'm gonna not read it until I could put it into October, and finally here.
Oh
So
my god. Oh my god.
yeah, but listen, it's perfect. It's perfect for this time of year. I'm gonna get some spooky vibes from it. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah.
I think it will definitely satisfy your need for horror.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, Laura, what are you reading next?
I'm gonna try and finish A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I've been trying to read this book for, I want to say, probably 2 months now. Because I started it and then I kept having other books that I had to stop to read. Like for the podcast. And so it was like my book that I'm reading in between books. So I think I'm gonna prioritize getting that done next. I did check out the audiobook to be able to help me get through it a little faster also. But I think I'm still early enough in the book where I feel like I like not too much has happened for me to feel like I don't remember anything. So I think I'll be okay just jumping right back in.
Well, I wish you luck on your journey to finish that book.
Thank you.
We all have those books.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do. So no judgment. But let us know what you think of it. It's on my list. So
Will
I
do.
know Emma Skies is really enjoyed.
Oh, she
Anything V.E. Schwab.
anything
does,
be
so.
Schwab. Yep.
I am working on starting the All Souls series by Deborah Harkness. So the first one's A Discovery of Witches. I watched the TV show. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, it's good. Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay.
I highly recommend. Yeah, I actually watched the show before I watched the books, and then I think I watched like the first 2 seasons. There's a 3rd season, I believe.
That's good to know. I knew it was a show, but I heard nothing about the show. I've not heard anybody talk about it, so I assumed that meant it sucked.
Oh no, Z and I love it so much. I think it's because it was on a weird streaming service.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember right now what it was called, but it wasn't like a main streamer, so it was hard to get.
Gotcha. Okay.
And find. So yeah, it's really good. It's really good. So I'm excited to read the books because I've heard they're even better. I love like people will come to my house and they're on my shelf and they're like, "You're reading that?" And I'm like, "I've actually never read it. I received that as a gift from my friend and it is on my list. The next rainy day that comes around, I'm going to sit and read that book." If you can't tell, I love a rainy day, guys. So like, yeah. I'm very excited for when the rain actually gets here. So yeah, I'm going to start that series as soon as it starts to rain. So, and I'm finishing up the other book that I mentioned. And then I have a whole TBR of NetGalleys that I need to get through.
Oh,
so
no.
Like, at some point I will get to them. It's just hard because I am such a mood reader. And so sometimes it's like, I want to read that, but it's just like not the mood right now. Like I can't. Rico is a sociopath to me. The fact that you're like, okay, so the next book, yep, it's on the list and that's what I'm going to do. So my mood be damned. And I just don't understand that. No, absolutely not.
I'm proud of myself because I was able to get my my ratio on my profile higher because I actually
On
put in my
NetGalley?
reviews. But
Nice.
now I have two books that I can't do a review for yet because I didn't realize they were book 2.
Oh, I have a couple
Yeah.
like
I have
that.
2
Yeah.
book 2s.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn it! Now I gotta read the first books first.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
are tricky because it's hard to tell on NetGalley sometimes. So
Yeah, they don't really tell you.
yeah, and everyone's so different. So it's not like there's like a spot to look or anything. You just have to be careful when you read it, which
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, that just sounds good. Add to cart, add to list, whatever, request. All right, you guys. Well, our next episode will be The Road to Roswell by Connie Willis, a delightful novel about alien invasions, conspiracies, and the incredibly silly things people are willing to believe, some of which may actually be true. So
Ooh.
join us for that book. But also let us know, listeners, what your thoughts are on this book. She is a haunting. Let us know if you also think it deserves 3.75 stars. Or maybe you're not a sociopath and you give it full or half stars. And then tell us why. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Shit We've Read. And yeah, happy Halloween, everybody. 'Tis the season to be spooky and cozy. So put on your rainy day playlist or grab a hot beverage, a little hot apple cider, mulled wine, you name it. And grab a spooky book like She is a Haunting or any of the other ones that exist in the world. Ask Rico for recommendations. He's got them. So
I got him. You want him, I got him.
He definitely does. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Oh my God. Shit We've Read is hosted by Laura Benson, Jason Rico, and Bella Romero, with music by Joshua Chilton and editing by Jason Rico.
To join the discussion on this and all other books we've read, find us at Shit We've Read on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok.
For more information about us or to request transcripts, please visit shitwe'veread.com.
This podcast is part of the Buy Low Network. Visit buylowNetwork.com for more great geeky podcasts.
Thanks so much for listening.